All right,
You look like
three,
Mr. Wilson.
2, 1.
Ready?
We are live.
Hi, folks. I'm behind my fortress. Welcome to our Saturday Night Live. No, it's Friday night. Sorry. Yeah, Saturday moved to Friday because the class starts on Sunday, and we're always running around crazy trying to get things ready on Saturday. So we're only on an hour tonight, and then we'll pick up the second hour Thursday during the class. This is some lumber I just got from Mel. I'll share that with you. Got a new plane I'm excited about. I want to show you that. An old Stanley. I'll compare it to the new version. And what else did I want to show them? There's something else we got. What did we just get? Shoot. I'll think of it before we go. So this is our fundraiser for the Purple Heart Project, where you get to participate and help us. We're about to start class number 30. And if my count is right, we will have, by the time the end actually, it'll be over 200 soldiers that we've had come through our program. They're going to put a link on there where you can donate if you want. I'll give you the numbers real quick. $350,000 this year to take care of it. That allows us to bring in 42 combat wounded vets, cover all their expenses, house them, feed them, send them home each with $3,000 or $4,000 worth of premium tools, have a workbench built for them to our spec and delivered to their home. So if you would like to put your name on that, we would love to have you put your name on that. Frick, question?
Sure.
Whose child is that that's really loud? Would that be yours, Jake?
No, it's mine, but you can't hear him because he doesn't have a mic on.
Oh, okay.
First one's from Steve in Lansing, Michigan.
Steve, what's his last name?
I don't see it here.
In Lansing, Michigan. Okay. Hi,
Do you
Steve.
cut stock oversized, then plane to exact dimensions, or can the dimension vary?
I almost always cut oversized. So the secret there is you have to learn a couple of things. You have to learn how good is your table saw, meaning how much of a mess does it make? How many strokes is it going to take to get rid of it? Strokes meaning with the plane. And how good are you with your plane that you can actually go in and literally just remove the marks and then be left square or straight, whatever it happens to be. I try not to leave it too much. But yes, I always leave it slightly oversized, unless you're building something that is an internal part. So if you're building the frame inside of a cabinet that's never going to be seen, there's no reason to leave those parts thicker. I wouldn't hand plane the surface. I always try to take this. I don't think I ever leave the saw marks on. That's always just bad what, Frick? Bad. No, it's not karma. Can't think of the word. It's not encompassing. Alan Peters would never have done that. He left every surface flawless. I try to do the same. How many do we have on?
210.
Hello, 210 folks. Really appreciate you being here and helping us. Want to give a big shout out to Mark and Nicole, as Kyle would call them, spaghetti. No, I can't say it.
That's probably why he says it.
The Wood Whisperer. We were there last weekend. We raised somewhere north of $20,000 for the Purple Heart Project. So we did a Friday. Mark's in just outside of St. Louis, Missouri, and we did a Friday night meet and greet. Saturday we did a 4-hour from 9 to 1. We did a 4-hour Dovetail seminar / workshop. And then we had lunch, and then we did a 4-hour / seminar workshop on half blinds, and then they had lunch, and then we did a live broadcast like this to raise more funds. So it was awesome of them to host us. They're fantastic guests. Good guy, If you're not subscribed to his channel, I would suggest you do it. Had Jeff O'Connor there with me. Jeff, check Jeff's Instagram channel out, O'Connor Woodworking. Also has a YouTube channel. Great guy. Big shout out to he and his wife Kim, and their daughter Grace, who's just come home with her horses. Also, we had Ralph. Ralph is a wounded vet that was in our class a couple years ago. Ralph is now, what's Ralph's job?
I don't know.
Ralph volunteers in the Purple Heart Project on fundraising, I think, or corporate fundraising. And Sean McDermott was there with us. Sean of the famed Sean Shim. Trent was there. Trent was in our class in 2019. He's actually in the same class with Jeff. Hopefully he's going to be my assistant in either September or October. And I can't forget Brent Nelson. Right up there in the middle. Slowest dovetail, but one of the best. He was there. Great seeing you guys. Awesome being with 5 of these guys. That's never happened before. It was fun. It was a great time. Now, another question, Frick.
Next one comes from John in Iowa.
Hi, John.
It says, when you plane a dovetail after glue up, does the process hide small gaps in the joint?
So sometimes what folks think is hiding really isn't. So if you don't close your baseline, this would be a sample right here. Huh?
You got a dovetail right there. It's easier to see.
This one? Yeah. So let me show you. I got some stuff I want to show you too. If you don't close your baseline, and sometimes for whatever reason, whether you messed up on your chiseling, or more often than not, you left material sticking up in the middle, or you didn't get your end square, and as a result, when you used your marking gauge, you have a line here and a line here, and they didn't line up, but you put it together, and then you got to square it in here, and that opens up a gap there. You plane this way, and what it does is it takes the fibers from in this case, the poplar, and it brushes it back that way, and it kind of looks like it fills that gap, but you run your hand back that way, and you'll peel it back, and you'll see what I mean. Typically, it doesn't. In fact, if you look real close, you can see a gap right there. You see it? Jake did this joint.
What?
No, actually, you know who did this?
I think it was Ben.
Ben, yeah. Ben, if you're watching, look at that. That gap right there.
What an embarrassment.
Oh, gee. He'll never win doing that. Anyway, if it's a dark on white, you never see it. But no, hand planing usually is going to make things more obvious. So I wouldn't recommend that as a method. You got any more quick? Can you hold off for a second, quick, Frick, while I show him some stuff?
Yeah, I guess so.
So I bought this. I got this from a fellow in Quebec. This is waiting. Look at those. Look at these gorgeous. Let me show them that too. Show off Jesse's stuff. So this is a 10 1/4, a Stanley 10 1/4. Was referred to a carriage maker's plane or a bench rabbiting plane. This one I want to show you because it's a little bit different than the Lee Nielsen version, and this is the first time I've actually seen one live and in person. So I'll show a few things to you. Here's the Lee Nielsen version. So if you're not familiar with this plane, the fact that the blade goes to both sides is very useful because it allows you to work right up to a vertical surface. So if I had a situation like this and I need to plane this piece, I can plane right up to that vertical surface. If I'm planing across the grain like this, there has little nickers right there. You see that? You loosen that screw and drop that nicker down, and what that nicker does, it will score the wood ahead of the blade so you get a nice clean line instead of a torn line, which is what you would get from the blade. Now we put the adjuster on there. That doesn't come with it. But the handles tilt. If you're trying to work up to up against a vertical surface, you're going to be busting your knuckles. So what you would do, Got to use the right size screwdriver, or else it'll muck up the brass screws. So you come in here like so, loosen that, and you always want to loosen it. You don't want to do it with it still tight, because it'll make it loose, make it move even easier. So you can swing it all the way to one side or the other, or any part in between. Same thing happens on the rear tote. Back that off, and you can tip that all the way over. So really convenient for working into a vertical surface. So what was different is on the original Stanley, they actually had a little gear shift. So when you loosen this, you could actually lock it in place. I'm going to take this all the way off so you can see. It's a good idea, because I find sometimes the handles will move on you. So your screw goes into this piece. So when you move it forward and lock it, that keeps it in the upright position. Or you can go down here to the left or to the right to have it so that you can lay it over to protect your hands. So you're either going to be, you got to come back here. Does that thing move? Left or right? That doesn't go very easy. Yeah, I would think so too. Well, there's the forward position, so it doesn't, once you tighten it up, that's going to prevent it from slipping to the side. Maybe it only goes that far. Oh yeah, I think it is. Yeah, so you don't get the full, I don't think you get as much. And the rear tote's the same way. You've got that locking position. Nice Brazilian rosewood handles. Nice big adjuster. I'd put an adjuster on that, but I want to keep this original. Something else I didn't realize is this wasn't a bedrock. So, in case you're not familiar with what I mean, when Lee Nielsen made it, they made it the full bedrock version. So you could access your throat by moving your frog forward or back, and you could access it from the back side, so you didn't have to take this apart. But on this 10 1/4, you had to take your blade out, remove your screws, move it forward. There was no adjustment screw in the back at all. You just had to move it forward by eye and do the same thing. So there you have it. I don't want to tell you what I paid for it, because it wasn't cheap. Another question, Frick.
Jim Kunkel in Corona, California.
Hi, Jim.
He says, do you ever do inlays? If so, any useful tips on making them look better than just good?
You know what? Have I ever done inlay?
Not that I'm aware of.
I'm thinking at some point I must have done it. I'm obviously not a huge fan of it. One of the reasons why I don't, I remember David Charles was talking about this table he did one time, and the painstaking work that it took to decorate this inlay. And then 5-10 years later, when the wood oxidized, you couldn't see it anymore. Completely disappeared. So I'm not against it. I think it's great. I spent a couple weeks as Silas Koff's assistant in 1987. Now his was marquetry, but kind of in the same vein. And he could literally paint a picture on a piece of wood. It was absolutely remarkable. So while I appreciate it, it's not my style. I choose to decorate what I build with joinery. You could maybe call that inlay. Next, Frick. Sorry, I don't have any tips for you.
Dan Patton in Fall River.
Hi, Dan.
When is a varnish such as urethane required on a piece of furniture?
Okay, you have to read that again. There's something missing there.
When is a varnish such as urethane required on a piece of furniture?
When is varnish such as a urethane required on a piece of furniture? I'm thinking he's probably alluding to the fact of the water resistance of urethane versus lacquer, maybe. I think you always have to have You always have to put a finish on, or else you're, especially on blonde wood, because you're going to get, every time somebody touches it, that's going to be accumulated. That will accumulate, and you just get dirty handprints, and that looks terrible. So you need a finish to protect the wood from grease and grime of everyday living and dust. You want a little bit of water protection just from being in the house and kids setting a cold glass on something. You don't want it to go in and soak into the wood. So I'm not 100% sure what you're asking, but I'm taking it from the very general approach is you want a finish to protect your raw wood. And you know, some people think it's going to help with the stabilizing of it. It'll slow it down. Maybe the absorption won't be as rapid because obviously the water has to pass through that barrier. I like to finish all the way around. In other words, if you just sprayed the top of a table, obviously the moisture is going to move freely or more freely from the unsprayed area than the sprayed area, so that's going to cause a bit of havoc. So I think you should finish it all the way around. Next, Rick.
Sean in Chicago.
Hey, Sean.
He says, have you ever seen the Honrite go bad once it's been mixed?
I don't think so. We have some, no, I've never seen it go bad. Nope.
Okay. Next one is from Dave in Lake Jackson, Texas.
Hi, Dave.
Have you ever been injured or unable to use your dominant arm? If so, were you able to continue woodworking using your non-dominant side? And how did you cope?
Well, interesting you should ask that question. I'll answer this one. I'm going to move some of this wood, but I'm going to tell you about it first. So I can't remember what we were doing, filming something in the online workshop, and I pulled something in my shoulder, on my right shoulder. And I just could not push that plane anymore. And that's when you realize that you can actually pull just as easily. Now, you have to balance in such a way that it doesn't skip around on you when you start. But you can easily go in there and use your plane pulling like that. You can even pull it on the wide face. I have never, occasionally I've been in a situation where I had to use my left arm to do something, but not intentional. And I've never had to do it because of injury. I don't know if I'd want to cut a set of dovetails with my left hand, but look what John did. This is John Hayes. So John had his right arm blown up quite badly. In fact, it blew all the flesh off his forearm. He was an EOD. And he had cadaver nerves in there, so he does have partial feeling on on the sides of his fingers. They put some meat back in there, and he doesn't have full mobility. So he cut dovetails with He cut dovetails with his left hand, and as a result, Jake had a fly on his hand, so I had to take care of it. As a result, John was able to do that, and that's remarkable. So you'd be surprised. Pretty surprised what you can do, especially when you have to do it. And he's determined. John's missing both legs too, by the way, so that's
Imagine being that handicapped and then not having two legs.
I guess that went over me. Anyway, I want to show you something. I want to walk you through this cabinet now that it's finished. Is it finished? No, actually it's not quite. I'll bring you up to speed. We have one thing left to do, and I'll show you. Terribly disappointed in what's available, put it that way. So the problem here is keeping this closed. So we got away from having to use two locks. Put a strip on here and a strip on there, so when this closes, as long as we can lock this door, this one will remain locked, and I'll show you again how we lock the drawers. So we ordered a chest lock, I guess you call it. So there is what it's going to look like. So I don't want to be figuring this out on the real thing. So I mocked up that corner, dovetails the whole bit, and then there's how it's going to sit in there. Now let me show you the everything. So there's a little escutcheon that's going to go on right there, which is dangerous. This is going to be tough because this is plywood and it's got to go so close. And you know what it's going to be like when you start cutting plywood.
Actually,
This.
it shouldn't be a problem
Why not? Shouldn't it be a problem?
because that plywood was glued in. So those fibers should be supported.
I hope. Anyway, we got to put that in, and then you'll be able to come in there with your key. Oh, I can't even show them how it works because the hole's not there. I got to make sure I get that in the right spot. So that will be set in. So this is got a. There's not a lot of material here, right? So this had to be fit mortise through the bottom, and then we've got to go in and just cover this on the inside. So it's going to be in that back corner. I'll use a piece of birch, I think, this time, not walnut. So it'll blend in. There'll just be a little piece, a cover over there. I don't think there's any reason. No, there's no reason because we can get it out. Just a cover. That's all we need. Just want to hide that so you don't see it like that. Now, can't even take that lock out. In other words, to show you, but I bought 2 locks. I bought this one from one company, and I bought that one from another company.
We're only an hour.
Oh, all right, we'll be quick. They're the same lock, same company, same everything. The only thing's different is that see how the bolt is there compared to that? And they took, on this one, they had already cut this piece off. So they took that piece of extruded brass, they cut it down to there, and then cut it out that way and cut it out that way. That one was $650? No, this one. This one is how much? 60 Canadian, which would be about 45 American, and that one was 120, and they're the same stinking thing. And there's the lousy striker plate that they gave me, piece of crap. So I had to make my own. So I made one out of 1/4-inch brass, and that will sit right in there, and of course it's going to go flush. And I want it to be small, so I didn't want a great big piece like that. This is bad enough. In fact, the more I think about that, Jake, wouldn't it be nice to make that even narrower, smaller? I might even do that. I'm just thinking it's not going to be. It's going to be sit down in there. All you really do is just you're outlining the wood, so it doesn't get dinged up from that throw. All right, let me go forward. So anyway, so that's the lock. That's the last thing to do. So you'll open this up. Now the other problem we had is getting these doors to stay, because you'd go to pull something out and the doors moved. So a lot of thinking went into this. I'm going to open this up again and let you see. So you see, you just have 2 nice little neat brass holes. So when you open it, this is spring loaded. So you do it like that and turn it. So that keeps that nice and tight so it doesn't move when you're taking your tools out. The saw clears it, so there's no problem that way. Same thing over here on this side. I won't bother. This one opens up and there's your bits. All your drilling apparatus. You've got your your winding stick sitting in there. To lock it, you turn that knob, which is the adjustor, and when that drops down, that locks these so you can't open them. And then to open it, you spin it back up until the little brass piece comes up to the middle, and now you're clear. And if you haven't seen that before, little brass pin in the back with a hole in it, there's a pin that drops down into that.
Frick, next question.
Yeah. I don't know how we're going to use this as a fundraiser, because I don't want to auction it off. I want to raffle it. Next, Frick. Shoot, run out of time.
Bob in Pennsylvania.
Who, Bob?
Yep.
Hi, Bob.
Given the potential for sunlight to change the shade and color of wood, do you take any precautions to protect the work pieces during a project build?
Yeah. I've a lot of times when we're doing something like, actually look at this. I have no idea how this happened. This is the same wood. Look at this side of this. Look at the difference in the color. I hope that catches up. So a lot of times when we're building something like this, it sits around for a long time because we've been working on that for over a year. So you want to make sure that, I don't have any sunlight coming into my shop, which is a good thing, but stuff still oxidizes. So you never want to leave a board on top of another board, part of it's exposed, because you'll end up with a line. My old shop, I used to spray everything outside, and I would stand it up against the garage to let it dry. And I made the mistake after they were dry of stacking them, so I had tall doors with shorter doors in front of them. And they weren't there an hour, hour and a half. And on cherry, it oxidized the line across there. Ugh. So yes, you do need to be careful with stuff like that. Next, Frick. Any vets on tonight? Do we know? Is anybody checking? Is Ken on? Is Luther on?
Luther's on. Brent Nelson's on.
Hey, Brent.
Jeff O'Connor's on.
Jeffrey?
Sure, some more. Sue B's on.
Hey, Sue. She was on last week, too. So I'll be down 2 weeks or 3 weeks, one or the other. We're just trying to figure that out.
Okay, Don in Durham, North Carolina.
Hi, Don.
Do you use a jig or freehand on narrow chisels, i.e. 1 or 1/4 inch wide?
To sharpen? Freehand. Freehand, I'll show you. It's easy. It's easy, but there's just a little different technique. Hey, have we got the 3/16 here, Jake?
I don't think so.
I don't have one on my. So the biggest problem is you don't have a lot of surface area. So the way I would do it a little bit different, find the primary, come up, little short strokes. Don't do anything round. I mean, don't go like this. Just little wee short strokes forward and back, and you can slide sideways just a little bit. Focus on not rolling it and trying to keep the pressure uniform. And then come over here. Same thing, find your primary, come up a little bit higher. Little wee short strokes. Just move sideways so you're not wearing one spot. But definitely don't do circles. You will end up taking off a corner. We did some video or some photography here last night for our door treatments at the front of our shop, and we were using some por favor cedar. That special cedar comes from Newfoundland. Kyle was the only one that can get it. Anyway, beautiful smell. The photographer was, oh wow. So now here's an 1/8 inch. So this one's really tough because you have even less surface area. So you just have to have little wee short strokes. You know, it wouldn't even be a bad idea when you're doing this little tiny one, just because it tends to be a little bit top heavy. I'm going to try taking the handle off, which is not a beautiful handle. It's a maple burl. I think I would take the handle off, find that primary, little wee short strokes, even shorter, and you've got to try to keep the pressure uniform. Got a burr. And then you have what's nice about the way we decided, this is a complete accident. Willie screwed up one day and made us did we intend? No, the 1/8 inches was intentional. The 16th wasn't. So the nice thing about this is you've got a lot more surface area here for holding. Very difficult to do the back, accurately do the back on a 1/8 inch chisel because you have no reference. And what you're lacking this way, you have to compensate for this way. So it becomes very top heavy. So trying to do the back of that in the initial preparation, they roll terribly. But the fact that you're a 1/4 inch back here just gives you a lot more surface area, and it helps too when you're grinding. Now, if you they're up for sale, right? The 16th and the 3/16ths?
Not 3/16.
3/16ths haven't gone up yet?
No.
So there's our 16th. Now that's a fragile chisel, but it's nice to have when you need to get in really tight. And we've got a 3/16 that will be, they're ready. I don't know why they haven't made it to the site, but they will quite shortly. Now I want to talk a little bit about this wood that I've got. So how long ago? When were we in Ontario?
Beginning a month ago.
So a month ago, Mel, how to pronounce his last name? Hordick. Mel owns a company called Exotic Woods in Burlington, Ontario, which is just outside of Toronto. And it's huge. He's got an incredible supply of wood, everything you can imagine. And a big warehouse full of it, as well as the showroom. So anyways, he was celebrating his 45th anniversary, asked us to come up and do some demos. So we did for 2 days. And we raised $4,000 from PHP. So I always can't go there without buying wood. So he just got me a shipment of holly. Now I found out a couple things about holly. Holly's not a commercially available wood. There's just a couple of guys that cut it. And apparently when you cut it, you have very little time to get it dried or else it's going to start to stain. So, and this is some wide holly too. That board looks to be about 10.5. 10.25 inches wide. So you wouldn't find a lot of that. What did we pay for this, Jake? Do you remember?
No, just a lot.
A lot, yeah, a lot. So there's some beautiful holly. I buy it whenever I get it, find it.
This one right here is Kyle's.
It is?
Yeah.
Well, we'll switch that out for a piece of aspen. You would never know. And we'll call it Poor Aspen. Poor for Aspen. So, and it's hard to come by and not have knots. I don't think it's a really big tree. It is an evergreen or a coniferous, so it's considered a softwood under that term. I've used it for drawer sides. There's nothing better for drawer sides. It is so white, it just makes your dovetail joint jump out. And I love it for boxes too, but it's so white, any amount of handling and it starts to show dirty. So there's what I got for holly. This is, Jake brought this home. So this is some true Cuban mahogany. We've got some 16/4, which is 4 inches thick, and we got some 8/4. What else have we got here? So this is an interesting story. So this is Mel got this. This was left over from the Lexus plant, and they would use this for turning the gear shift knobs. And this is bird's eye. So, and this is cut. So if you look at the tree, the center of the tree is here. So the bird's eyes all go radiate out from the center. So if you want your best exposure, you want to cut perpendicular to the way those rays run out from the center, like spokes. So that's how they cut these pieces. So you can see that if you were to cut the wrong way, you end up with these long, streaky lines. You're never gonna see bird's eyes. But there's the outside of the tree, and you can see all of the individual bird's eyes. That would actually trans what?
Transfer?
No. Shoot, what's the word I'm looking for? You see it in the bark as well. You don't have to take a piece of wood off the tree in order to find your bird's eye. You can. What's this stinking word, frick? You're the English major.
I'm not paying attention.
Of course not. Anyway, it shows in the bark, whatever the trans word is. Here's a piece of, that didn't come from there. Here's a piece of black and white ebony. So this little piece of wood was $147. And this makes gorgeous handles if you look at that. The problem is, it's so hard to dry. And there's some serious checks in there. I hope I can get a couple of handles out of that. But that was a nice wide piece, had lots of color, and it's got some worms in there as well. And this is I got a waxy coating on it, and that's to try to slow the drying down. Otherwise, it just cracks up. We bought a bunch a while back, and by the time we got it here, it was destroyed. There's another piece of that 16 quarter cube of mahogany. Here's a piece of nicely figured quilted maple. And that's a nice piece too. When you get that in the light and run the hand plane over that, it's extremely iridescent, I think the word would be. Another piece of holly. Have no idea how much money we spent on this, but I'm sure it was a lot. Now, no, there's a piece right here.
Oh, yeah.
Black heart. I have never used it, don't know, but he sent that home with me to try. And then we also have a big piece of por favor, also known as Port Orford cedar. And that stuff has got...
Also known as Port Orchard.
Port Orchard, yes. Depending on who you are, has different names. But that is so fragrant. As soon as you start planing it, the area around here starts to smell. It's just awesome stuff.
All right.
Question.
Next.
Question.
Kyle Rogers in Gold Coast, Australia.
Hi, Kyle in Australia.
Can you tell us a bit more about the hand plane you are designing?
No.
Well, that's pretty quick.
Yeah? No.
All right.
No, why? You can tell them why.
Gene Carden in Hayward, California. When you cut
Jake's
it,
such a private person.
when you cut a tenon, do you start the cut in
This
the
is Gene in
gauge
where?
mark?
Sorry, Gene where?
Hayward, California.
Hi, Gene in Hayward.
When you cut a tenon, do you start the cut in the gauge mark centered or just touching one side of the gauge mark?
Well, let's do one. Let's do one and I'll show you. Jake, can you come in close, please? So I'll use it and I'll use the back side of this piece of
The word
pine.
you were looking for earlier, was it transpose?
No,
Transparent?
no. May even just transfer. So I'm going to use my marking gauge first. So we're going to cut a tenon on the end of this. We'd get a shoulder mark all the way around. And I would take this is the RobCosman design, thanks to Paul in Ontario. We would take this, take your 1/2 inch, what are we doing with that?
I don't know.
I think your child just turfed again. That's not enough. I'll use this 3/8. So you loosen up that thumb screw. Tighten it up so you're squeezing the blade, the chisel, between the two cutters. Tighten that up. Take it out. Now I've got to center it, and I just do that by eye. And if you want to check yourself, you push down like that, and then you swing it around to this side and push it down. The lines should line up. Fortunately, they did. Now you got to be careful because the bevel counteracts the way a marking gauge works. When you pull a marking gauge through the wood, the bevel causes the tool to pull this way, keeping the head of the gauge tight here so it doesn't wander on you. Because you have each one canceling out the other, that doesn't work. So what you have to do is make multiple passes. And I just keep going a little bit deeper each time. Right? So when I get something like that, I'll then take depending how wide it is, I got to put a quick edge on this. So this is my 1-inch Lutherian chisel. See, with a wide chisel like that, you can speed the sharpening up.
Here.
Oh no, here, I got some right here. You can speed the sharpening up. Here's all that reference surface you have. Actually, I can still see a shiny spot out beyond the end, so I got to go a little bit higher. I always want to get that burr. There. Take that off. Come over to my 16. Set it down on the primary, come up a little bit higher. Flip that over. I got some gunk on the back I gotta get rid of. There. Now, the question was, when you start to saw, where do you place the saw? Now I'm gonna put my headgear on. And for those of you who have been waiting, Jake, you notice the shipment just came in?
Yeah.
So we now have these optivisors, which is the new improved version. And I'm using, in case you're interested, I'm using a 3 diopter, which seems to work just nice for me. And I'll tell you the reason why I like this so much. It's so light. I've worn these at home at night, not realizing they were still on my head. Unfortunately for Jeff, I don't have to buy any counterbalances for my optivisor. All right, so I'm gonna come in here like this. And what I'm gonna do is, starting in the waist, I am going to chisel up against the side of that cut I just made with my marking gauge. So that, in effect, has given me a nice trough. I would do the other side as well. Now, as a little precaution, if you don't have much material out here, what can often happen is that when you start sawing, that little piece of material that little cheek will fall away and allow the saw to wander. So I often put a block beside it, and I'm even going to come in here and clamp it a little bit better. Don't saw your clamps.
Should lower that one.
Yeah. Now, on a cut like that, I would use my medium tenon. So my medium tenon is, the saw plate's a little heavier. It's 25 thou instead of 20. Has a bigger tooth. 22 teeth at the beginning. Oh, wait a minute, what am I talking about? That's my dovetail saw. Where's my medium tenon?
I don't know if you have one or not.
That's a 13-point cross cut. I think these just might be in the wrong. No, it's over here. At the very back. When we built this, cramped quarters, so we had to build it with the least used saw at the back. All right, so what I'm going to do, come in here, by allowing my saw to go into that little trough, I can lay it right in there so that the saw is right up against that wall. And I'm going to put my finger on the top side just to keep that from accidentally jumping up. Now I want to get a curve started, so I got enough of a curve started, then I can forget about that, and I'll just follow the cut down the face. What's nice about this is it allows you to forget about the top line. You only have to worry about your cut down the edge. Top's already been established. And then, of course, you're going to do the other side as well. You can swip it, or you can turn it around if you want, which would make more sense because it's kind of hard to push that blade against that little wall from that side. So spin it around and do it, and it's much easier. That's how I do it. Next one, Frick.
Jack in Watertown, New York.
Hi, Jack.
Do you have a preference for joints for boxes and drawers other than dovetails or box?
Sorry, say that again. Do I have a preference for?
Joints for boxes and drawers other than dovetails or box joints?
Yeah, come on over here, Jake. I'll show you some. It's Jack in Watertown.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna show you a variety of them. So here's one. This is really simple. This is the first one we did. Did we do a video on this? Mm-hmm. Has it been released?
No.
How come?
Time.
Frick, was
Yeah.
too long?
No, we had shot a lot of wood hinge this year.
Oh. I'll show this one. This is a little later on. So this is using a little spline. This is a really easy box to do. So I set it up, so all you need is a router table with an 1/8 inch bit. And you project the bit up out of the table and you set the fence so that when I'm doing this piece, when I'm doing this piece, standing up like that, the outside of this piece goes against the fence. And I cut a slot in the end of this and in the end of that. Then I take these pieces, and I, of course, do the same thing over here. This piece I lay down so that this is referencing against the fence, the same as that did, and I cut a slot, same depth, only up in the face. And then I use that same setting to cut the slot in this piece, this piece, this piece, and this piece to house the bottom and the top. And then, of course, the whole thing is glued together. After the glue is dry, you go in and you cut it apart. Your hinge runs all the way through, and there you have it. So that was a very simple way of doing a decent, strong joint. The other ones I like to do are these, and this is where I miter it. So it's just a regular miter. And I use my, I have a miter special shooting board that cuts miters where, the board is laying flat and you're cutting a miter on it. So I've got a miter all the way around. Once the glue is dry and the joint will be strong enough with just the glue for what I'm doing, then I go in, I lay out the dovetail, and using my dovetail saw, I make cuts. Looks just like a dovetail. And then I took the same material this was, which was ebony. I cut it really thin, planed it so I could slip it down in that kerf, hit it with some cyanacrylate. When the glue's dry, flush it off, and it gives you the look, the appearance of a dovetail with more work. It's supposed to be less work, but what else? And then, of course, yeah. Here's another example. This is holly and English walnut, and that it really stands out. I like that. That's actually considered inlay. Frick?
Yes.
Question?
Bill in New York.
Hey, Bill.
Do you allow for the wood removal in the final fitting of a drawer? Do you allow for
Yes.
the wood removal in the final fitting of the drawer?
Yes.
No, I don't understand that. What are you talking about?
Do you allow for removal of wood for the final fit on a drawer? Yes.
Well,
Yes, you do.
yeah, I'm assuming that you're understanding what he's meaning. When I fit the drawer back and the drawer front, they're tight. They're not. That's not the final fit. That's the tight fit. So then once you've built your drawer and you plane down to the back and the front,
Well, how do you allow for removal of stock?
well, I set my marking gauge to be less than the thickness of the side so that when I assemble, the sides stay proud of the front and the back. And then as you start planing them, you plane down until you just start to touch the ends of the pins. And then from there on in, it's just, half a thou here, half a thou there to finally get the final fit. But I think that's what you mean. Frick. Big shout out to Angie. Thank you, Ange. We need to sell more t-shirts. Got to get after Ken. I think maybe it's his fault. Any more vets to shout out to, Frick? I got a couple to seeing as we got a new class. So this is class number 30. I said that. I just want to show you some of the recent additions to the Hall of Fame, Jake. I told you about John. And this is Omar. So Omar and John and Dom was another EOD. And all three of them were in the hospital at the same time, so they knew each other. All three are double
No, just amputees.
amputees. Anyway, Dom's work was, I wish I'd got that, but he was worried that he was getting behind. He ended up having what I would consider to be a perfect dovetail. He made a bench hook, and I told him, I said, I can't find fault with anything on this. This is perfect. This is as good as I could ever hope of doing. But he took it home. So, but Omar, who was missing a good portion of most of his hands, pulled off phenomenal work. Charlie took my class, suffered a lot of traumatic brain injuries. Took him a little longer, not as long as Brent, but he pulled off fantastic dovetail. Of course, Brent's up there just at the top of the game, smiling. Justin had done a little bit of dovetailing before, but he did phenomenal work. Marshall Rommel from my very first class, and Philip Gustafson, who was in my class, who came as my assistant a couple classes ago. And
The last class?
The last class? Philip, yeah, right. It all blends in. And Philip was in our very first class. He was our first all-star dovetailer. Fantastic work. Frick?
Chuck Nemeke in the chat. He says, I
Hey, Chuck.
recently bought the wooden hinge kit. What is your preferred method of making the dowel so that the grain best matches and disappears into the box?
Well, if you really want to take a deep dive on that, where's a box? Have I got a box? Let me grab a box. I'll show you what I mean, rather than trying to talk you through it. I wish I had that walnut one here.
Which one?
The big walnut one. Grab that one. Pause on that question, Frick, and well, Jake goes and runs and grabs that for me, and then I'll do a different one. I'll come back to it, I mean.
Sean in Chicago, would it not be better to start
Sean.
preparing the back of a chisel with a Sharpening 220 Glassstone versus a 1000?
No. If you have to use a 220, yeah, I don't like going down that deep for a couple reasons. The 220 is hard on your lapping plate. In fact, if you're using a Sharpening lapping plate, they tell you not to use anything below 500. It really wears hard on the diamond. And you shouldn't have, if you have to remove that much material, there's something wrong with the chisel, I'd return it. Usually the 1000 grit is, Jake uses 500, 1,000, but I wouldn't go down to 220. Next, Rick. Making one up now?
Well, I'm out, yeah.
You're out? Well, here, I can finish up with this.
Well, here's one. It's from Anonymous.
Who's he?
I'm not sure. But it says, why isn't Luther featured on more of the videos, especially his dancing?
Well,
I think I know where this question's coming from.
We do have some taste. We do have ratings to pay attention to.
Just know that.
We don't want certain bots being attracted to our channel. So here's the box. This is a good example. So if you can see this, but you don't see it until I open it. So if you really wanted to get good, what I would do is I would have taken this back piece and I would literally have cut the piece of wood off right here. So imagine this piece not being joined, just rough material. Take this piece of wood and make your dowel out of that piece of wood. Now, you could identify it even further with how the grain orients, but you could just see that in the end anyway, especially if it came out of there. And you can look at the way the grain is running, match that piece up. So after you've turned your dowel and you match up the position of the dowel so that it's in line with where it's going to go, then you draw a line down through it with a pen. Then you make your cuts. Then you put it in your jig and cut your holes. And when you reassemble it, you put it back in together and you keep that line out here so that it perfectly lines up. And then you can go in and it'll disappear. Now I didn't actually do that with this, but look how close it matches. Even though I don't think you can spot that. And look how ugly walnut gets with exposure. And there's no direct light on that at all. not I don't like what happens to wood in UV light. Any more vets to say hello to? Oh, where's that going? Any frick? Any more vets to say hello to?
Well, I'm sure there's a few or a bunch, but
You haven't found them? Ken was on tonight. Anyway, so let me wrap up by telling you this. We'll do our draw, or we'll do our draw on, did we raise any funds tonight, Jake? Rick?
around 700, I think. 780, Brent said.
Well, we have to hit 1,000 to give away a prize. We need your support. I know I say that to you all the time, but hey, it's not going to end. This is, we're emptying this lake with a spoon. Thursday night, we'll back on for an hour. We'll go all the way through the class. Let anybody who wants to speak. You get a chance to see who some of these guys are coming to class. I know one of them, Travis. Travis was a wrecker operator in Afghanistan. Ran over a triple stacked three anti-tank mines.
Telegraphs.
What? Telegraph, that's the word, yes. But you threw me at the wrong time. Anyway, he'll tell his story when you get to meet him. And Ed Calkins is going to be here. Ed's a friend of ours coming back to take the class. He is Travis's stepfather. So it'd be nice to have some family connections in there. Anyway, it's going to be a fantastic week. Looking forward to it. The food is always fantastic. Join us Thursday night. You get a little bit feel for what it's like to be in there. You'll see where your donations go. Moose will be here to give away some Dead Cat sweaters. It'll be wonderful. So stay tuned. We'll see you on Thursday of this week. Be safe. Please help spread the word about the Purple Heart Project. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your support. See you.